Welcome back. My name is Andromedas, and today, I debate on what topic to talk about, um, because there's a certain thing that I still sort of struggle with on the basic concepts. Like, I have an idea of how it works, but unfortunately, I had jumped from one language to another language, and all of this is within a span of like maybe, I don't know. Say March, April, May, June, July, August. So probably 5 or 6 months of time period, and that's the arrays, lists, and whatnot. Because as far as I know of in Java, there's something called tuples. As far as I know, Java doesn't have it per se, although we use it implicitly. But I didn't know what it was, and so the idea of tuples. First of all, the word sounds really weird, and like I said, it was something that I wasn't accustomed to. And also, in Java, there's like lists and whatnot that you can't mix data types, as far as I know of. But you can in Python, and that to me is just mind blowing, and it's still taking me a little bit to get used to that idea. But anyway, so I was debating on that, or go ahead and jump into functions/methods. But I think we'll go ahead and knock out the arrays and lists. And once again, I don't know everything. There's certain things that I'm still in the process of trying to understand. But hopefully, once I get that done or get that concept burned in my brain, I can help you guys out with it as much as possible. But most of them are called iterables, and all that means is you can go through it, and like I talked about in on the for loops, you can go through them and either pick out one thing out of the list or array or whatever, or you can go through and print out everything that's in that list or array. You can start at the beginning, or start in the middle, start at the end, or whatever. But to break it down to a more simple concept is this. Okay, remember we talked about variables, right? And how they're boxes. Cups, glasses, containers. Yes, containers. And how they only hold one thing. Well, imagine, if you will, you had that box. So say, going back to the cereal thing, imagine you had a box of Fruit Loops. And imagine that you have OCD. And I'm not making fun of people with OCD. Do not take me for that. I'm just using an example because a lot of times coding is basically OCD in a way. But imagine you had a box of Fruit Loops. Alright? But you have other boxes of cereal. So you have, I'm not even going to name them off, but you have other boxes of cereal that you want to store. Well, you're not going to store the box of cereal, hopefully not, like on the table, and then one box of cereal on top of the refrigerator, another box of cereal in your pantry cabinet, another box of cereal in your dishes cabinet. Most people don't do that. What they do is they store all the cereal in one spot. Not necessarily organized or whatever, they just put the boxes there. And that shelf, and this is what I'm getting at. The shelf is your list, your arrays, your tuples, dictionaries, and whatnot. It's basically holding all those for you. Now, where you start coming into a difference is, for example, like your dictionaries. I think Java has it, but they also have something called hash map, and they work off the same principle. Imagine, if you would, you go log in on a website, right? You have your username and you have your password. Now, your password is key to you. If you try to use a different password, it's not going to work. If you try to log in with a different username and try to use your password, it's not going to work, or at least it better not. Otherwise, they got a bad security problem. So that username and that password is unique to each other. In this case, the username would be the keyword. That's what the system's going to look up is your not your password, your username, and the password will be the value. And so you have that right there. That's basically a dictionary of itself. It's of one item with a key value of your username, or key with the key of your username and the value of your password. But when you have a list of them, like say if you're an administrator, you have a list of all the different users and all the different passwords. And that whole thing is a dictionary. Or it don't even have to be that. It could be, let's say capitals, capitals and states. Well, the capital, you could have state as the key and capital as the value, but they're paired together. So anytime you go to look them up, you always find, if you look up your capital, you always find the state. If you look up the state, you can find the capital. But one thing to note about that is the fact that key values, once it's set, or keys, once they're set, they can't be changed. You can change, like say if you have, let's say Washington, D.C., oh, no, that'd be a bad example. Let's say Atlanta, Georgia, right? Let's say we got Georgia as the key and Atlanta as the value. Well, you can go in later on and change the value of Atlanta to Savannah. But you can't change Georgia. Georgia will always be there. So, and that just, it keeps things more secure. Just like your username and password. You can go in and change your password, and that new password will be, excuse me, that new password will be now tied to your username. And it gives you a little bit more security on certain things. It allows to the lookup to be the same, and dealing with dictionaries is a little bit more simpler because it's only having to look for that one thing rather than having to look through a whole bunch of stuff. Like I said, in Java, lists can have or the list dictionaries, they can have different what do you call it, data types. You can have in the same tuple, you can have a data type of a tuple is basically, it's kind of like dictionary, but they're not tied to each other necessarily. You can change either one of them, but and they're separated by a comma, where a dictionary is separated by a colon. But with the tuples, you can have one data type of being an integer and the other one being a string. You can have it as a boolean and a string, or a boolean and an integer, and it doesn't really matter. But Java, as far as I know of, you can't do that with. And I keep saying as far as I know of because I got so far into Java and I hit a brick wall, and then I switched to Python. Plus, I tend to switch a lot anyway. But yeah, so basically, bring everything back down to where it's supposed to be at. If you think of lists, arrays, dictionaries as basically being a shelf that you're storing stuff on. And then you got your 2D arrays, your 2D list, and it's basically multiple shelves. Like if you got one shelf of cereal, you can have a bookshelf or a pantry shelf system, cabinet. That's what I'm looking for, cabinet. Then you can have like shelf, a cereal on one shelf. You can have canned food on another shelf. You can have your sugar, flour, and spices on another shelf, and it's all part of one system. And that's kind of like what 2D arrays are, but you got your, how to explain this? You got one list that goes this way and one list that goes this way, your rows and columns. And what that does is that allows you to be able to say, okay, in this category names, and then right below it is going to be all the different names. And that's category age, and then everything below it could be age, and so on and so forth. It makes creating like spreadsheets easier. It's kind of like I don't even know how to say it. It's kind of like you're doing a spreadsheet with those, but in a different form, a less graphical form. But it is kind of the same thing. Um, so when you hear arrays, don't be frightened of them. Don't be intimidated by them or anything like that. They're not that hard to understand. Um, and they are really extremely useful. They're used in a lot of things. They're used in collecting data. They're used in stuff like game concept. Like say you have a player has an inventory. Well, that inventory is basically an array or a list that you pull from. Um, so yeah, it's a very common thing to use and really easy to learn once you get into it and everything. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I didn't ramble a whole lot, and I hope it made a lot of sense, because sometimes I don't, and it's really early. I haven't been awake very long. What time is it? I've been awake about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Anyway, so hope you enjoy it. Hit the like, subscribe, check out my coffee videos if you like coffee, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.